waste any time, I asked the question, who are the real children of Israel? And I'd like to answer it right away.
Go ahead, dear minister.
Like any good lawyer in a courtroom, he tells you what he's going to prove.
All right.
And then he goes ahead and proves it and let the jury make the decision. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad has said that Almighty God, Allah, revealed to him that the black people of America are the real children of Israel. And we are the choice of God. And that unto us he will deliver his promise.
First and foremost, giving all honor and praise to the creator of the heavens and the earth. We thank that great God for his mercy, for his benevolence, for his grace. We thank him for our ancestors in whatever form or fashion they may be found. We thank him for our founding fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We thank him for Moses and the Torah. We thank him for Yeshua, for his revolutionary approach to the new gospel. And we thank him for Prophet Muhammad ibn Abdullah for the Holy Quran. Peace be upon all those noble and worthy servants of God. But surely if I can thank God for men, women, I know only from scripture, only from study, I must surely be humble enough, grateful enough, but also diligent enough to thank him for those who he has sent in this dispensation of time. So I'm eternally grateful for the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and the God that he represents, Master Fa'ard Muhammad. I thank him for his students, the Honorable Brother Minister Louis Farrakhan, and the members of the Nation of Islam under his leadership and guidance. I thank him for Brother Munir Muhammad. May Almighty God be pleased with his life and his soul. I thank him for the co-founders of CROW, Brother Halif Muhammad Shahid Muslim, and all of those who seek righteousness, justice, and peace. I'm eternally grateful, thankful, and honored to have God show favor on us again by sending his angel to give his excellency, Rabi bin Ami, the vision of 1966 to return back to land, language, and culture. I thank him for Nasik Shaliach, that master teacher that taught us through his writings the knowledge of self and the knowledge of prophecy. And if those two were to form and birth a spiritual child, it will most certainly be my father, the holy redeeming angel, the man who I place in a special heart of mine, Prince Asiel bin Israel, and those righteous, gracious, and holy names I greet you, my brothers and sisters, in the words of peace. Shalom alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you. As always, it's an honor, it's a privilege to come before you to have this opportunity to speak to such serious subject matters. And today, I wanted to come on and, again, have a conversation in regards to everything that's taking place on the planet. And the reason I want to go back to the impetus, the foundation on why this platform was created alongside my brother Moray Kananya, who I said last week will be returning with us in the very near future. But it was to disseminate information, in such a way that it will propel us to produce the necessary change that is needed in our lives. We wanted to take the best of all of those men and women who have sacrificed their life, their toil, their work for our freedom, not just now, but in the future, into perpetuity. That we found in our lives it to be incumbent, that it be a necessity, that we use the information and knowledge that we have garnered, not just for superficial means, but for substantive change. This platform was created to take a critical eye, not in the sense of disparaging or diminishing anyone's work or their commitment or their offerings, but that we are able to be critical so that we can be constructive, so that we can produce a necessary change, so that we don't be repetitive in practicing the unsavory or the unneeded habits, but put into practice, put into play the necessary practices that will produce a constructive benefit. So again, it's a lot of people in a lot of places disseminating information who can articulate, who can read immaculately and give you history in such a way that it was if they're the book themselves. So our position isn't to give you something necessarily that hasn't been told or shown or given before, but it's to do in a way that we're able to encompass all of the necessary life support systems that's needed to bring into existence our freedom. So we would use this platform, we would use these microphones, we would use our life and the lives of those who preceded us and those who are still amongst us to galvanize on the premise and the basis of truth. When you take a very circumspect look at your own life, because you have to start with self first, unable to be critical and analytical with self, when you're able to be honest and truthful with self, to work on the things that are not producing or yielding positive results, or bringing life or elevating the quality of your life in a real serious way, then you can start the process to be an assistance and a help to others. One of the things that we as a people in particular, because we lost knowledge of self, we lost the knowledge of God, we lost the knowledge of our true adversaries and the adversaries of truth. Though we have bits and pieces which we're able to identify, we're still in a very emotional way are unable to produce the necessary change. So again, until we learn how to be honest with self first, when we learn how to truly love and care for self first, to do for self first, then we can be in a position to help and be an assistance, to be a guide, to be an example for others. But we can't, in good consciousness, knowing that all of the lies and deception that govern this planet, can put ourselves out front as if we have knowledge or we have authority over some particular endeavor, some particular field, and we're not using that knowledge that we're disseminating to others in a beneficial and advantageous way for ourselves first. Yes, your words are important, but what's more important, what's more critical is that those words match your actions and your deeds, and they're able to produce constructive, tangible results. We're physical people living in a physical construct. Though we understand the science of spirituality, we cannot be foolish enough, naive enough, scared enough, frightful enough to stay in the realm of spirituality where we're not able to produce physical and tangible results. So again, the purpose, the intent, the objective of this platform, of the life of myself, starting with myself, my brother, and those who are along on this journey, should be first and foremost to represent the change that is needed, being exemplified through ourselves, through our lives, through our ability to have tangible results. Now, The center of the focus of this message, and I won't be long, though I say that all the time, it'll be an hour. Seriously, will not be long today. I want to get straight to it. Though everything I say has a point, has a strategy, has a meaning, and it all is interconnected, and nothing should be overlooked or taken for granted, because it all coincides and coexists, is intertwined and interwoven with each other. So we have, as we look at the landscape of the planet, as we look at the continual and perpetual injustice that's being placed and overtaking our people, we have opted out for symbolism than substance. Meaning that our response to the injustices, to the murder, to the robbing, to the stealing, to the outright hatred and disdain that is displayed on a global scale is always symbolism, but not substance. We're not really focused on what the act produced more than in just the act. So we'll do something, a lot of times spawned by emotion, birthed by emotion, that doesn't correlate to a tangible result. Meaning that we have been disconnected to such an extent that we put more value in the act than what the act produces. That means we can go out, we can proclaim and profess to want freedom, to want justice. We can go through the physical means of protesting. We can march. We can even riot, as we see evident as of late. But it's all to elicit some type of sympathy, some type of acknowledgement, some type of sense of acceptance from the very people who are putting us or perpetuating this current state that we're in. So you're looking for the very people who are profiting, not just monetarily, but meaning they have the ability to control the resources, but the greatest resource of the planet, which is the human life, which is your life and our life, in such a way that they are able to play God at a whole nother level, and we are just being victimized by that. But we're not looking with a conscious mind and say, oh, we can't with any real seriousness think that the very people who are profiting off our death, damnation, and despair would put us in a position to remove those things. That just by us pleading to some type of sense of benevolence, that they will overturn their hearts and then revert back on hundreds of years of success of keeping us in this decadent state and put us in a position that justice is being implemented and practiced throughout the planet. How does that make sense? I always heard as a young man, as a young warrior, do not fear death. Do not be frightened by the prospect of death. That inculcated in the struggle of freedom is the price of your life. I've been contextualized in that way. And so you put yourself in a position where if you are successful in this work, that death is something that you don't necessarily encourage, but when it's put before you, it's not something that detours you or distracts you. That you're willing to face the unknown because you know that there is the only course of action, meaning that you can't go back on your heels. You know you can't go back to the reality that you were living in, that you were victimized, and that the unknown would be easily more accepted than you living in or under the yoke of your oppressor. How can we, again, say that we lift up those ancestors who we see that traveled that route from West Africa to the shores and the wilderness and the hills of North America through the transatlantic slave trade, who we hear stories that would rather jump off that ship and face life in the Atlantic than become a slave. They couldn't go 1 second longer of being a captive because their freedom meant that much. See, this is the training that we try to put into those young revolutionaries, the young evolutionaries, to instill a sense of not just pride, but fearlessness. You understand danger, but you are not afraid. But as I've grown and developed and I've seen different circumstances in my life and I've done more research and more study, and even in my own life, I see the value, more importantly, of not just the fear of death, subsequently shouldn't be the fear of life. And our people, I realize, really aren't afraid of death. Maybe sometimes you can see cowardice in the people who, in facing imminent danger or the possibility of death, capitulate, compromise, run. But we're talking about a people who perpetually practice death via the relationships that we engage in, whether it be the nature of the lack of exercise or concern that we have for our actual physical health, whether it be the improper diet that we practice, or even if we think we're practicing a proper diet, the inability to understand how it relates to our own bodies. Look at the nature of our people. How many people really understand how their body works? How many people really understand the function of their organs, of their life support systems? How many people take the time and pride to understand basic caloric intake? How much energy do they burn? How much do they need to consume to sustain themselves at a certain level? How many people take the time to see what is in their environment? What are they consuming? What are they listening to? What are they watching? How they are being in environments that are toxic, that promote conflict, but not resolution. See, those are all signs, attributes, characteristics of death. Because all of those put you in the ground. You hear all the time, he died of a broken heart. He died of stress. He died from high cholesterol, high blood pressure, diabetes, certain cancers. May Almighty God be pleased with the life of Chadwick Boseman, who had just passed. And all of those who've made transition, all of those who've been murdered, all those who've lost their lives, subsequently, directly, indirectly, by the control of this satanic order. What I'm saying is something that really must be taken into consideration. I cannot, in good conscience, try to come over here and give you some facts, give you some history, give you some scripture, and I can't make it relevant to the very needs of your life. Yes, I can give you and disseminate information, but the most important information is, hey, how do you love and take care and maintain self? Based on what you say you plan to do is live. But before we can, with real vigor, with real force, real might, us, pursue freedom, we have to free ourselves of the very habits, the very conditioning, the very mindsets and mentalities that allow us to perpetuate a death reality. We afraid of life. You hear all the time, eating healthy is too hard. I find some type of joy in indulging and overindulging in rich and decadent foods that I know is not causing any real benefit to my overall health. I know eating processed sugars is detrimental. I know eating high fructose corn syrup, which is an artificial substance that makes me obese but keeps me in a perpetual state of hunger, because these artificial chemicals send certain response to my brain to tell me to keep eating, though I have already been satiated, though I've already met my caloric intake. Us have really been afraid of life under the false pretenses that we fear death. It's time to live again. Because once you choose life, I mean, seriously, for yourself, once you choose to live and do what it takes to live a high quality of life, you take into consideration how you don't just treat yourself, but you treat others. So now you start to put into practice the necessary habits that promote peace, that promote harmony. See, we've been hearing black people need unity. Well, first, you need to be united within yourself. See, I don't need you to be around me, and I don't need to be around you if I haven't developed the necessary practices to show self-love first. I'm just going to cause you more harm. I'm just going to cause you more pain. I'm just going to cause you more hurt. Shout out to my sister, Shantariel. We are in a position that we haven't reached the point where we, again, and I'm going to say it again, have chosen life. Now, I wanted to start with that. I seen on YouTube, DJ Vlad, who is a commentator, interviewer of mostly hip-hop community. He was interviewing a brother comedian from Chicago, Godfrey, and they were talking about the Nick Cannon thing. I'm not going to bring this too much into discussion, but he said a point that I think needs to be articulated, at least addressed as I go into the next subject. He said that one of the things that he had found at fault with Nick Cannon's statement initially that he had with our brother, Professor Griff, was this concept of God's chosen people. He said he thinks that some bozo, and he used an exploitive for defecation. And he said, well, he threw in the Jews. Like, yeah, I think the concept of Jews saying it too. But he mostly was focused on black people identifying with being God's chosen people. Let me say this. Because he tried to contextualize and say, well, any real people of God don't think that they're the chosen people, that we're all equal. Human life. See, when you got people like that giving you disinformation, misinformation, and not contextualizing, they do that on purpose, you create a system where people are continuously being misled and miss the true intent of what's being disseminated. The God of justice is always going to favor the oppressed people. So his choice is to bring into existence the freedom for the people who are under the yoke of suffering, under the yoke of oppression, who are under the yoke of murder and mayhem and devastation. That's what the God of justice promotes. Justice, meaning that nobody's treated unfair, unequally, and not getting the constructive help that they need. So absolutely, when we talk about the God of life, the God of justice, having a chosen people, it is those who are the most oppressed. And who is the most oppressed on this planet? It's you and I. So by proxy, that will put us in a position to be the choice of God. Not just because we're the original, not just because we're the first, but because we are in a position that no one on this earth has any reverence for you. Nobody on this earth has any sympathy or empathy for you. Even those who proclaim to be allies do it in such an insidious and duplicitous way that they garner your support, your acceptance, and then they take advantage of you, just like those who openly and overtly do it. There's no distinction between the present day Democratic Party, and the Republican Party, just like it wasn't in the old days. And that's why we see the concepts of the platform which they stand on be reversed, meaning the approach of how they're going to operate the system of white supremacy, which is the control of the resources of the planet. I hear all the time with black people say, man, well, white people only do it because of money. They ain't going to lose their money. No, it's not about money, brothers and sisters. Money is a concept. It's an instrument, it's a tool used to maintain control. So it's not about money. It has nothing to do with money, the currency. It has money to do with the economics, meaning the energy and time of those people that you have the ability to keep your foot on. See, nobody likes to hear these conversations because we have to put in an unemotional and logical approach to the reality that we face. See, until you accept that you're in a war, that you accept that irregardless to how you perceive things, that it doesn't change the reality and the circumstances in which you face each and every single day. So we elect symbolism over substance. I'm going to play a clip about our brother who was just murdered in Kenosha, Wisconsin. It's not too far from Chicago, Illinois. And I want you to see why I'm saying what I'm saying and both sides of the coin.
Jacob Blake isn't supposed to be there, and he took the complainant's keys and is refusing to give them back. 4707, answer 43. It looks like he's trying to leave. We're trying to get a vehicle description.
Shot fired. Okay, we need rescue. ASAP.
We currently have every single squad on scene there that we have.
Hey, thanks for watching.
Now, that was necessary, and the reason I wanted to play it because, again, we seen our brother who was he survived that ordeal. A lot of us don't. But be shot 7 times indiscriminately by a police officer who was looking for the opportunity to shoot and possibly kill any black victim. Why is that important? Why am I bringing it up? Because as you seen the brother walk away from the race soldiers who were seeking to take his life, I want you to be circumspect about the reality of what we are engaged in. You are engaged in a war. That means in a war, just like if you're in a fight or in a basketball, you play sports. You don't turn your back against your opponent. We've had too many examples. And I'm not saying that this is brother's fault that he deserved it. I want you to just hear so we can be intelligent as we move forward. Your life is always on the line when you are engaged with these people. Until you take the reality of what's going on what's being done, what has been being inflicted on us for hundreds of years now, until we really grasp that concept, this is going to be a continuous thing. You can't do that. You cannot do that. Not only when he survived, because he's supposedly still under arrest, he was handcuffed, paralyzed now, from the waist down to his hospital bed. See, this is what they think of you. This is how they see you. Now, Dylann Roof can go into a church with the intent of killing innocent black men and women, and he did, 9 to be exact. Young white man in this post-racial state that we're in. Be taken out, a bulletproof vest being placed on him, taken to buy a burger, and then taken to jail. And then even amidst all of that, they were trying to have him plead to insanity to lessen his sentence, to possibly get him out. Until he said, no, I was intentional with what I was doing. That was my intent. I'm not crazy. I'm not insane. That's what I was trying to do. But yet, with all of that omission and overtness, he was still treated with some dignity and respect. But you never. See, until we understand the times that we are in and think in a more intelligent and logical way, always being circumspect, not being emotional in the moment, this is something that's going to be perpetual. I said earlier, we're not really afraid of death. We're afraid of life. We're afraid of freedom. That's why you had, and I commend everybody who took a position. You had the NBA take off 3 days. They're back playing today. Even some sport commentators who were black took off in solidarity with the basketball players who was in solidarity with the shooting of our brother. But that symbolism. Because nothing constructive has changed. And nothing constructive will change. Well, I know a lot of our people, and I lift up those. You got to leave America. That's the problem. Hold on. You're being emotional again. See, you're absolutely right. That's the start. But to leave America, the geographical location, that's a gift from God. All of this earth was ordained by the Creator. Some places are better than others as far as the luscious resources that they offer. But America is a concept. Israel is a concept. These places are concepts. And what are the concepts? Most of, if not all, and even most of all the African nations today are governed with the concept of white supremacy, black oppression. That's why you can have a country like South Africa still to this day, even after Mandela, even after the so-called ending of the apartheid, and I've been down there for months, you can still see that system is ran by Europeans. And our black indigenous people still getting the short end of the stick. They're still being oppressed. So if you don't have a logical and systematic and intelligent means on how to eradicate the system, the concept that has been oppressing you with the people who will govern it, your geographical shift in location will mean nothing. But you have to choose freedom, meaning that, hey, I'm not going to just sit out a couple games. You know what? Let's go create our own league. Let's go do for self. Ice Cube kind of already got a Kickstarter. Let's see how we can work together since we got all this money. We got all this influence. Let's work amongst each other since we see there's no way that we can live in peace amongst a people whose intent, whose concept is on our death, is on our subjugation, is on our murder. Again, you're afraid of freedom. You're afraid of life. Death is easy. That's what you've been doing this whole time. We don't want to live. When are we going to choose life? We'll go to the next part.
Setback. Medical.
Kyle Rittenhouse is the teenager who took a weapon onto the streets as a self-styled protector. This was the moment his efforts ended in the deaths of 2 people when he was chased by a crowd and shots were fired.
Now, he is identified as a teenager. He's identified as a teenager with a real assault rifle who was out after the shooting of our brother Jacob. And Tamir Rice, who was actually a kid, 12 years old, playing with a toy gun, who you can see was fictitious, be shot down with nobody even around him. This man, 17-year-old young man, who was going out with the intent of killing and actually killed people, still has his life. See the disparities?
Earlier in the night, he was captured on camera, apparently having been pepper sprayed.
So you guys are full on ready to defend the property? Yes, we are. Hey. No.
The 17-year-old social media postings show him to be a Donald Trump supporter. This was from his attendance at a Trump rally. He wasn't the only armed civilian on the streets of...
See, I want to stop that, get this little caveat. Don't let them, you see, this is what white people do very well. That's why you have to create, and we have to create our own media so that we can give the proper information and a proper perspective, especially as it relates to our freedom and our salvation. There is no distinction. See, they try to categorize racists or the white supremacy system to a particular group. Ku Klux Klan, Donald Trump, the Republicans. That's a misnomer. That's a lie. That's a misdirection. They all practice it. They all benefit from it, and they all perpetuate it. And to try to isolate or seclude to one particular person or one particular group, make Donald Trump the boogeyman when Joe Biden, who's the Democrat who's supposed to be pro-black people, was the author of the mass incarceration bill that Bill Clinton signed, who was another Democrat who was supposedly the first black president because he could play a saxophone. Listen to me now. Listen to me now. Who brought into existence the dismantling of our families, who indiscriminately incarcerated and ended the lives of hundreds of thousands of our brothers and sisters. There is no difference. They just come. See, we caught up in emotionalism again, responding to the overt and blatant sources of white supremacy by open and outright killing. But this whole system is built on that. And it's all built to destroy you, to keep you in a perpetual state of confusion, perpetual state of decadence. Again, when are we going to choose life? When you choose life, this whole system fades away because you're going to do everything in your ability to disconnect and create something that is representative of a system of peace, equality, and justice.
On Tuesday night. These pictures show a tense standoff between protesters and members of the public, militia style, guarding a petrol station. The following night saw more peaceful protest.
Now, this is what they do. So you say, we want the removal of the police department. We want to defund the police department. Okay, we send out white militias. We send out white militias who are there to what? Keep the order, keep the peace, be in solidarity with the black protesters of the injustice of our killing of our brothers and sisters? Absolutely not. They're opportunists. Because if they tell you they're there to protect the property, not the lives, not the people, they're not intercessors between those murderous cops who are killing our brothers and sisters, of the George Zimmermans who are supposed community patrol who kill our children. See, they're not never there in those instances. But as soon as you get killed and you decide to show some type of emotional response, though limited, though it's still part of it and is needed, you come out and show some aggression. Here they come. Here they come. Armed to the teeth. Nobody's doing anything to them. And they have military-grade weapons. But you can have a cell phone and they can say that's justifiable cause to kill you. You can have a toy gun. That's justifiable cause to kill you. You can turn your back to them. That's justifiable cause to kill you. You can have a pack of cigarettes. That's justifiable cause to kill you. You supposedly had a counterfeit $20 bill. That's justifiable cause to kill you. You can argue over a traffic stop. They can bring you in and say you hung yourself, but they know that's justifiable means to kill you. When will you choose life? When will you choose life?
Didn't stop Anthony Perini patrolling armed from the roof of his petrol station.
We're not walking around with AK-47s and trying to look militant. We want to avoid any kind of situation, but at the end of the day, I'm a firm believer in property rights, and this is my baby, and I'm going to protect it to the best of my ability.
We went to a gun shop just over the state line in Illinois. In the current climate, business is booming. In this state, there's been a 500% increase in the number of people looking for a license to own a firearm. This is an AR-15, similar to the weapon involved in Tuesday's incident. They say in this gun store, this wall was full at the start of the week. Now it's half empty.
This is what they're selling. This is what they're selling. And then guess who's the target? You and I. We're prey. We're prey. You watch on their sporting channels, them hunting deer, hunting geese, hunting fish. They call it fishing. Maybe less aggressive than the first two. You see the zoos that's full with animals that they've captured. Most of them they had to kill because some of them, like those ancestors of old, refused to be captives, refused to be slaves, and were not going willingly. You keep missing it. You keep missing it.
According to the store manager, business growth is based on fear.
It's been the busiest year we've seen in several years. People are scared. They're not sure what's going to end up happening. A lot of people just want to be able to protect themselves.
There are problems and...
Again, the prospect of white people thinking that they could lose control over their slaves brings them fear. These Negroes are rising up. These Negroes acting like they want to do something for self, that they're fed up. Oh, no. If the police won't kill them fast enough, we need to take it into our own hands.
Solutions at the heart of America's election campaign.
We will put out the fire. We will put out the flame. We will put out the vandalism, because the vandalism and the looting is ridiculous.
Following events here in Kenosha, America's top basketball stars paused their participation in the sport's annual playoffs in protest at what they called police brutality. They plan to return to court by the weekend. Protest has gone quiet, but it hasn't gone away. James Matthews, Sky News, in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Again, the NBA is a system built on white supremacy, built on oppression. Now, we can say that, well, they're getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars. Sure. Most of them aren't, but some of the big names are. But think about somebody owning your livelihood, your likeness, just like the music industry, into perpetuity. And soon as you don't serve them any good, there's no real severance package. There's no lifetime insurance, just like they do the NFL players. NBA is a little bit better than NFL, but in most cases, you go broke and destitute if you're not able to rebrandish yourself and go into the world of sports broadcasting or get some type of coaching job. But that's few and far between. When are we going to choose life? Now, I want you to listen to, now you seen the guy, the white kid, Kyle, who was outright murderer as a young man. I know, again, well, white supremacy, racism, that's for the older group. That's for the older demographic. Post-racial state, 17-year-old kid. Remember, it's a system. Remember, these teachings are still being inundated in the children in these households. They haven't moved away from their objective, from their purpose, from their agenda. The game hasn't changed. It's just the style of play has been different, has differentiated. Only a minute level, though, because still, lynching is still, even though we still get hung by ropes, but it's just more effective with the bullet from a gun. Listen to their media now.
We do know why it all happened, though. Kenosha has devolved into anarchy because the authorities in charge of the city abandoned it. People in charge from the governor of Wisconsin on down refused to enforce the law. They stood back and they watched Kenosha burn. So are we really surprised that looting and arson accelerated to murder? How shocked are we that 17-year-olds with rifles decided they had to maintain order when no one else would?
Fox News host Tucker.
So he's being uplifted. And there's other examples of what Tucker Carlson said in more egregious ways. on the web that you can search, and culture, go on and on and on. But it shows, again, it's a system. It's a system. So, I'm going to put a footnote in there. But I want us to understand this, as this example gives us clear and concise perspective, that until, again, we eradicate the fear of life and the fear of freedom and having to do for self and not having somebody determine our reality and our future, what we got so comfortable doing, then the freedom, then the change will really be ignited and implemented. All of the life support systems of this planet have either been eroded, maxed, or totally eradicated. You're the last hope. You're the last hope. But that only works. The planet can only reboot and give itself a resurgence is once you take your proper place and implement justice, implement peace. And it starts with self. I thank you again for listening. Before I leave, though, see right up here at blackroyalty.com, got a new launch. I get a plug. Go to the website. Beautiful tracksuits that are available. Your brother, support them. It's a movement. It's just not clothes. It's a movement. We're doing it to inspire the youth to not just be entrepreneurs, to not to be just creators, but to feel comfortable dealing among one another, having the pride of clothing one another. And for the people who say, I only wear culture and gold and blue, it's not for you. For the people who say, I only wear suits, it's not for you. It's for the people who wear culture, wear suits, but also wear athletic wear when they're running errands, working out, or just having some athleisure time. But again, we have to define ourselves, and we have to feel comfortable dealing and working with ourselves in a good and respectable way. So we can shop with Nike and Adidas. We can definitely shop with each other. It don't necessarily have to be me, but find somebody that is amongst one another doing something constructive and beneficial that we can promote and uplift, because that, again, is a key to success. That's what unity looks like. It's not all of us being in one room together. It's being able to be on code and have trust and love and respect and admiration and be able to deal with each other in a meaningful and just way. We all don't have to look the same. We all don't have to be the same. But if you take anything from these movies, 300 Spartan, 300 alpha male with their own minds, with their own perspective, had an understanding of being able to be in line with the mission and the purpose. And that's what protected them. And what was the weak link? The brother who was not inside the circle, who felt that he didn't fit and had contempt and sold them out. We got to fortify the ranks. We got to galvanize and get those internally who we can work with and trust with. And then that's how the change will happen. That's how the change will happen. It's not for everybody. It's for a select few. Thank you for listening. As I leave you, as I greet you in the words of peace, shalom alaikum, assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you.
Logo on my flow mat, courtside Chamberlain throwback, match my Rolex. Everywhere I